Welcome to episode 5 of the All Hustle podcast. I'm your host, Bowen, and as always, I'm joined by Abdul,
What's up? What's up?
Daniel,
What's going on, guys?
and Marco.
So, guys, how are you doing?
So, after we finished The Last Dance, we thought it'd be a good time this week to delve into our award ballots for this season. Of course, as everyone else, we don't know when the season will resume or if it will resume, but we thought there was a big enough sample size this season to dive into our MVP and all our other award choices. So, figure let's get right into it. MVP, Daniel, why don't you lead us off on who you think should be MVP of the season?
Sure thing. I think it has to be Giannis this year. You know, last year he had an incredible year. This year he's even better, and he's a monster on offense, extremely efficient, and a monster on defense as well. All while leading the best team in the league, the Bucks, to a 53-12 record so far. Like, they're on pace to eclipse 65 wins. I don't think there's a debate when it comes to the MVP this year.
All right, Abdul.
I think I might be the only one who gives in this ballot, but I think LeBron gets his 5th MVP.
Wow.
I don't know. Like, it feels like this award has almost become narrative based over the last little bit. There's always like something new to it or like a change of scenery that like voters want, and I think in the case of LeBron, like last year was like an off year as far as like winning, and like I get not as much production LeBron's always produced, but like this year, like we've really been able to see like LeBron in full go as a point guard, and he's by and far the league leader in assists. He still averages around 26 a game, almost 8 rebounds, and at 35 years old, and playing better defense as well, putting more of an effort on that end too. He hasn't missed much games either. I just think what he did is ridiculously impressive, especially for them to be first in the West with no problem. Seems like they've just been coasting it this year.
Interesting. I don't even have Giannis or LeBron on my ballot of my top 3. Giannis to me is clearly number 1. Just some quick stats for you. 29.6 points a game, 13.7 rebounds, 5.8 assists, 58.3% effective field goal percentage. And he leads the league in field goals, 2-point field goals, defensive rebounds, PER, usage, defensive win shares per 48, box plus minus, and defensive box plus minus. So not only does he affect the offense, he affects it on the defense, on the best team in the league. Yes, you could say that their conference is a little bit weaker, but I mean the stats and the record back it up.
Yeah, jumping in on that, also LeBron has AD by his side, and Giannis has Chris Middleton. Nothing against Chris Middleton. I think he's an all-star. But like, Dave is a bona fide top 5 player in this league. You know, like, there is a legitimate conversation about who's the best player on Los Angeles right now. I think it's LeBron, but AD's like in his prime and still like getting better. You know, if Giannis had a guy of the caliber of an Anthony Davis, it's very safe to say that the Bucks could go for 74 wins. You know, because they were on that pace before, and then Giannis got hurt the last 2 games. He didn't play because of his knee, and they lost the 2 games. So, I mean, the man is just, as Bowen just pointed out, maybe the best offensive player right now, and maybe the best defensive player. We're still gonna get to that, but for me, it's clear. It's Giannis. I think Abdul just want to throw fire in the conversation. That's it.
Abdul, you said you think the award has been like given based off narrative in the past few years.
A mix of it.
I mean, I would agree, but is that why? Are you picking LeBron thinking that he will get it because of that, or do you actually think he deserves it?
Like, I'm not gonna say I don't think he actually deserves it, because then I just wouldn't have thrown that take out there. Like, I really actually believe like what he's done this year is like just ridiculous. It's almost been like a refreshment for him, because he was in 8 straight finals. Everyone was like, he's tired. Like some people are waiting on like age to catch up to him. Because like we all know how much like he actually plays this, especially going through that many like playoff games and everything. And like I'm not against the Giannis like argument. It's just that like I think LeBron, like in the narrative sense, like LeBron has a bit more edge with that because like what the Bucks are doing now are is like what they did last year, but like just like at a bit of a higher clip. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Like,
without
I mean,
Malcolm
Giannis,
Brogdon,
yeah. I was
yeah,
gonna say,
without
yeah, when they lost Malcolm Brogdon, and they're still arguably the
Sure.
same, if not better than last season. So I think
no, I know.
LeBron is top five. Like make that like I think you can have a top five with AD and LeBron in it, but
Yeah.
I just don't
You
have
could.
the two of them in my top three.
I want to know what's your top three, Bowen.
Yeah. Who's your number two then?
All right. Number two, James Harden.
Okay.
Leads the league, 34.4 points a game, 7.5 assists, 6.5 rebounds, 53% effective field goal, 6 in the West. There are 5 out, no center lineup is tailor made for Harden. Westbrook edition this season has taken some of the load off of him, but is still capable of going nuclear every night. He is the best scorer in the league this season, bar none. And there's been specific Harden defenses that have been crafted to stop him, mainly to no avail. And my third choice, Luka Doncic, second year in the league. He's been a sensation, 28.7 points a game, 8.7 assists a game, 9.3 rebounds a game, 53% effective field goal. Leading the Mavericks to the 7th seed, 40-27 record, their first postseason appearance since 2015-16. Surprisingly poor three-point shooting percentage at 31.8%, but has the most unguardable step back next to Harden. And I think his impact on that team is like cataclysmic to their success. So Giannis, Harden, and Doncic, and then I'd probably see LeBron and AD to round up the top five.
I'm gonna give you something. I think James Harden is very underappreciated. For me, he should have been the MVP in the last season because I had the second best scoring season in the history of modern basketball. Only MJ had like one season better than Harden last year. And but this year, I think he gave a lot of the load to Westbrook, especially in the last 20 games, and it's working. You got to give him credit for that as well.
Mhm.
But I think I would put Luka Doncic at second.
Really?
Because if you go by take Doncic out of the Mavericks, what did they become? They become a 30-win team, maybe. Kristaps Porzingis will probably see to half of the season, if not more. So I think Doncic deserves a lot of credit. I'm a little bit worried about his ankle because like he hurt like twice already. So I don't know, but yeah, I'll have Doncic at number 2 and LeBron at number 3. That's my top 3. Giannis, Doncic, and LeBron.
But Harden top five.
Yeah, Harden's top 5.
Okay.
Yeah, I got LeBron number 2. A lot of things that Abdul said, same reason. I think, just watching the Lakers play this year, he was running that team, and he's the reason why they're number 1 seed in the West. I don't think it's AD, even though AD's been incredible as well, and would be my 5th, probably number 5 for me for MVP. And yeah, just LeBron as a real floor general this year. It's something a sight to see. And going off that, like the Lakers went on such a hot stretch before COVID. And it was LeBron who was leading the way with that, and I think that was just going to continue. So I'm going to give him credit for finding rhythm like as the season went on. Number 3, I had James Harden too. I mean, when you look at the stats, they just speak for themselves. Like he is shooting, even though like he has a 44% field goal percentage, his true shooting percentage is 61.6%, which is actually higher than Giannis. So that's like just because he gets to the line so much and then shoots them at such a good rate, it makes him such an efficient player, even though like the raw stats don't necessarily make it seem that way. And even though they are 6th seed, like they're just a few games back from the 3rd seed. It's really tight in that range of the Western Conference. So I don't think it's fair to be like, well, they're 6th seed, so you can't rate them high.
Especially when you're doing a lot of changes, like the way they play, like giving the ball to Westbrook a little bit more, see what works. So I think like if they stuck to Harden, maybe they would have a higher seed, but last chance of succeeding in the postseason. So I think the I agree with you. I think the sixth seed doesn't matter all that much in that conversation right now. Right now.
Yeah.
And who's
So
yeah, Abdul, go ahead.
my mine and Daniel's actually mirror each other's. It's just that our 1 and 2 are flipped. I have Giannis at 2. Like he's, especially like considering his age, he's a very impressive player, of course. He's he's gifted with a lot. We'll put it that way. Like with that length, that size, his athletic ability, and like the slight improvements that he flashes in his game from time to time. Um, it's ridiculous to watch like how much he's actually able to dominate the game, even though like his arsenal is kind of limited. But like that doesn't like teams still have a hard time stopping him regardless of that, which is a sign of a great player. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And considering like he's turning 26 like later in the year, like he does have time to like be able to like completely round out his game, and to do what he does now, even with that is, and for the Bucks to win that many games is crazy. And then Harden is also my 3. I think Harden is kind of like in a similar boat to Westbrook as far as like normalizing the crazy things that they've done. In regards to Westbrook, is the triple double. It's kind of like almost like triple doubles aren't seen as being as difficult as they really are to get. Um, with Harden, it's the scoring, right? Like a lot of people are like, he does this to the game, he does that to the game. All he does is this, all he does is that. But like realistically, like the guy really can't be stopped. Like no matter like what people want to say about it, like you can't stop. He only really shoots himself out of games. Aside from that, like he's not really getting stopped by anybody. And to score 35 and be ignored, like like there was a point in the year he was averaging 39. Like it's ridiculous. And the Western Conference is so tight right now that like I think Houston and OKC are tied, if not like half a game apart between 5 and 6.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the West is like a couple games apart. Like the Lakers are the only ones who really have breathing room. So yeah, Harden has to be my guy at 3. He's done a lot this year with a lesser usage rate than before.
I think that
Yeah.
Harden takes a lot of hate because like they lost to Golden State all those years. But you got to point that Golden State was always a better team, you know. Like Harden had like CP by his side, which is like obviously a great player. It was like 2 All Stars against 4. That was the last 2 years was like that, you know. But
But
like
he,
Harden lost to a way better team. I don't think that's a knock on him, you know.
yeah, he lost to a better team, but like he never like performed to the way
No,
he
I agree.
performed during the season. Like
I agree.
Harden's like playoff game is like against the Spurs with OKC. Those are like his best playoff moments. You can't think of Rockets moments that were like defining games from Harden. At least nothing comes
No,
to
I agree. I agree, but like 2018, they lost the 7th game to the Warriors. CP was not playing, but like Harden had a somewhat okay. He scored, I think, 32 points, but you just
yeah.
felt that he wasn't closing and stuff. So yeah, I get it. But
Mm-hmm.
still, he's playing against a much better team, so I don't knock him on the regular season for that. You know, we're not talking postseason; we're talking regular season right now.
Right.
Yeah. I was surprised no one made the case for Harden at 1. Just like quick stats, like he leads the league in points per game, field goal attempts, 3-pointers made, 3-pointers attempted, free throws. He has 138 more free throws than the number 2 ranked, which is Trae Young, which is absurd. Also, free throw attempts, points, field goals missed, win shares, and he's averaging 12.6 three-point attempts a game, which is like absolutely ridiculous. And then, shooting it at 35% is, for how
Not a
much
bad
volume he
percentage.
takes is, it's not
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
That's kind of really good, actually. If you shoot that many, like always, like isolation, that's pretty good.
Yeah, always like unassisted step backs, pretty much.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to Rookie of the Year, which I assume will be a consensus, but who knows? Because we are already surprised with our MVP decision. Abdul, why don't you start us off here with who you have on your ballot for Rookie of the Year?
John Morant runaway trade. I don't think there's really much question that he's left. I think a lot of I don't know, he's played most of the games. He's been so impressive. Memphis is the 8th seed in the West, which is ridiculous. Like nobody really saw that coming. Yeah, it has to be Morant. He's just brought so much flavor to Memphis basketball. Like you want to watch them because of him, and you don't know what he'll do next. And he's a solid passer. He distributes the ball. He can score the ball. He shoot a bit too, but he brings the highlights as well, which I mean, just keeps elevating himself time and time again.
Marco?
Can I go last?
Sure. Daniel?
Okay. Yeah, I'll go. Yeah, I got John Morant too. I don't think there's a discussion here. He's leading the Grizzlies to the playoffs, which no one thought the Grizzlies were going to be in the playoffs, and they obviously wouldn't be there without him. He's missed 6 games this year, and their record when he hasn't been there is 1-5. So that says enough. And then his numbers, he's averaging 17.6 a game and 6.9 assists, which we've seen rookies do that before. But the fact that he's also doing that and almost averaging 50% field goal percentage, that's not something you see often from rookies. You'll see numbers, but they're just volume scores where they're putting up points, but shooting 40% from the field. So I think, it's a John Morant slam dunk here.
Yeah, and on he's 26% usage rate, so he's controlling the offense. He got handed the keys, and he's clearly performing. I mean, yeah, they have backslid a little bit, and it's a possibility if the season continued, they could have lost that number 8 seed. But I mean, right now with the facts given, pretty obvious. We'll go to Marco.
So my Rookie of the Year is Ben Simmons. No, I'm joking. But yeah, it's John Morant. There was no way. It's John Morant. It's not a conversation. Zion's great, but it's not a conversation. Yeah, go on to the next one. It's John Morant. Go on.
Yeah, just some quick info. Had Zion played more games, or even played the rest of the regular season that the radio was playing, I think he would have been Rookie of the Year. But I mean, he played 19 games, 565 minutes. Morant played triple the minutes. Zion leads rookies with 23.6 points a game and first in rebounds per game, 6.8. But just the whole game gap is, it would just be unconscionable to give him the Rookie of the Year.
And I think even if Zion had played the rest of the year, it wouldn't have been enough games for it to take it away from Morant. Because Morant's having a really great year. It's not if it was the year that Brogdon won, where it was he was having an okay year and they didn't want to give it to Embiid because he played 31 games.
Yeah.
But if Zion played the full year and the guy who won it instead was Brogdon, then I would think that's unfair. But in this case, it's Morant's going to play a full year and having an outstanding season, so it has to be him.
And I mean, if the Pelicans leapfrogged the Grizzlies and Zion was averaging 30 during that span, maybe there'd be more of a debate. But I mean, I agree. I want to give a shout out to Kendrick Nunn, though. He was third on my ballot. He plays 30 minutes a game. He started all 62 games for them. Third in rookie scoring at 15.6, and fourth best with 3.4 assists a game. He came out of nowhere. He's undrafted. Unbelievable scorer. 52.5% effective field goal. So, he's been a big reason for why Miami has kind of exceeded expectations this season and had a really good, surprisingly strong season. So I think he's definitely worthy of consideration. Obviously, there's a hefty gap between the 1 and 2, but he was my third comfortably.
I think Brandon Clark deserves a shout out too.
Yeah.
Because 12 points per game, 5.8 rebounds, but he's shooting 62% and 40% from 3.
Wow.
And only in 21 minutes. So there's a reason why he's not getting that many minutes, but he's super efficient, and like maybe next year if you see him playing more minutes, he's a devastating player. So I think he deserves a shout out for sure.
Great drafting by the Grizzlies last season.
Yeah.
Moving on to defensive players of the year. We'll go to Marco to start this one off.
Oh yeah, of course. So like as we were talking about, I think you gotta go to the advanced stats right here, and they point to Giannis. Giannis is leading defensive rating and defensive range shares as well. So that's it. But I don't think Giannis is gonna take it because like for you to win defensive player of the year and MVP in the same year, it's gotta be like something really crazy, and like not having somebody else to give it. And I think Anthony Davis has been in the line for that award for like 4 or 5 years. So I would go with Davis. I think he has a huge role with the Lakers. I think Giannis actually would deserve to win it, but since he's already taking the MVP, my vote is for Anthony Davis. This guy entered the league to be a multiple-time MVP. He never won it. I think it's time for him to get at least some love from the awards, so I'm going to go with Davis.
Yeah, I mean, I had Giannis. It is very difficult to quantify, but he leads the league in defensive win shares. He's on the number one defense in the league. Obviously, not just him. You have Brook Lopez, Eric Bledsoe, Chris Middleton. They're just a phenomenally long and athletic defensive team. He's also tied for third with Gobert in the league in rebounding. First in the league, 11.5 defensive rebounds a game.
Yeah.
It's going to be close, but just how good the Bucks were on both sides, I think you have to give a lot of the credit to Giannis, and I think he deserves the Defensive Player of the Year. But I could understand if he gets MVP, that some voters might think, "Oh, he shouldn't deserve this other award as well."
Yeah, I got Giannis. Like, I think AD is a perfectly good choice, and he deserves it too. But Giannis, yeah, you mentioned his stats, but and the fact that the Bucks have the number one defense.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say he's still the focal point of that defense, even though they have so many other good defensive players. I don't think they have that good of a defense without him, and it's a historically good defense. So I think it should be his award. And in terms of like he won the MVP, so we're not going to give him Defensive Player of the Year. Well, I'm going to look at each award individually, and best defensive player is Giannis, and he's also having a monster offensive season. Just another reason why he deserves the MVP.
I think it's really close, but
we all know
I'm giving this. Okay, my reason being is that like I think there is more value given to rim protectors who put up numbers in that sense. Obviously, Giannis is a great defensive player, but AD has been one of the best, if not the best, rim protectors in the league. And he's showing it again this year. Obviously, he has help, but I think he's about third in the league in shots and block shots this year. The Lakers lead the league in block shots themselves as a team. They're one of the top teams in points per game allowed. And Anthony Davis, like as far as like even bringing the energy defensively for the Lakers, I think he plays a huge role in that because this was a totally different team last year, and they've made such a huge leap. So I think the slight edge would go to Anthony Davis.
That's fair. I also had Rudy Gobert on my ballots. As much as I believe that he is an overrated basketball player, I mean, you can't deny the stats and the non-stats that show, like, when you're watching games and you have a point guard driving in the lane and you see him pass the last second, it's because of Gobert and the potential for the block. And that's something that can't be quantified, but I think to people watching the Jazz play, you can see how big of an impact he has on that defense. I mean, they're 10th best defense, so it's not great, but they don't have a lot of other phenomenal defensive players. And they play a lot of smaller guards and wings to kind of make up for it, I guess. Just because Gobert is so dominant that they can afford to have more shooting on the court. I mean, great stats. I mean, he's in the higher percentiles of blocks, offensive rebounds and defensive rebounding. So I think he's worthy to be in this tier with Giannis and AD. But Giannis and AD are, I think, fairly clearly the options for the number one.
Yeah.
Or for the defensive player of the year.
Let me just put in something before we move on. Kind of strange, not strange, but like kind of fun that Kawhi is already completely off this conversation, right? But he's already taking a lot of plays off during the regular season in the defensive end, so that's just a point to something because 2 years ago he was undisputed the best defensive player in the league.
I think there's a big difference between like the regular season defensive player of the year and the playoffs, because in the playoffs, I would say Rudy Gobert is almost a hindrance because teams hunt him in the pick and roll to bring him out onto the 3-point line. And then in the playoffs, Kawhi is so much more impactful because he's going to play every possession like it's his last. So I think you can separate it, and it's kind of unfair because the playoffs is where like the real players shine, and that maybe the actual best defenders are show up in the playoffs and not in the regular season, right? And yeah, Kawhi would 100% be in the top 1, 2, 3 players, defensive players. But we're looking at regular season and stats and the eye tests, and it was clear that yeah, he did take a lot of games off. All right, moving on to most improved player. This one should be interesting because we got a lot of players to discuss. Daniel, you want to start off?
Sure thing. So yeah, there's a lot of players that I thought of picking. You know, I thought of Brandon Ingram, who made a huge leap this year, and especially since you know, he was coming off real bad injury issues. He didn't know what the future of his career was going to look like. So for him to come through a season like that was amazing. Tatum came in, you know, I feel like he became the star we've been waiting for him to become. Doncic made a huge leap, even though he already had an insane rookie year. This year was just another huge leap. But I'm picking Bam Adebayo as my most improved player. His stats like basically just doubled from last year, and I think out of all of those players, he's the one who changed the conversation about him the most.
Interesting.
He only started 28 games last year. Everyone else I named was a full-time starter the year before. He comes in this year not only a starter, but becomes an all-star. Last summer, he was cut from the USA World Cup team. This year, like he'd maybe make the team even if all the NBA stars were going, right? So I think, yeah, he's the one who made the biggest leap. I'm not saying he's the best of all of them. He's definitely not, but the biggest leap is him for sure.
Yeah, I had Adebayo second on my ballot. Yeah, the jump in doubling of pretty much everything, and just his defensive versatility. Like he can defend 2 to 5, and he kind of thrives on like dribble handoffs and dribbling a lot in their offense, which you don't really see a big guy do that. And so it enables Miami to position like a slower footed big guy like Olynyk or Leonard or Silva next to him to open up like more shooting opportunities and kind of just create a better offense. And it's through his development. Like I know I discussed Nunn and how he kind of helped the Heat, but Adebayo is the biggest reason why the Heat are doing so well. And only 22 years old. Who knows what his future will hold? But I had Brandon Ingram one. I mean, last year was bad because you knew he was a scorer, but he was like 51.8% effective field goal. He was 33% from 3 last year.
Yeah.
And this year he's 38.7% from 3. He was 67% from the line last year, and he's 85% from the line this year. So you can see those improvements in those stats, especially the free throw.
Yeah.
You have an 85% free throw shooter, and he's, you know, he needed that fresh start. I think he was under a lot of pressure in LA, and he became the number one option on a team that struggled early because they weren't expecting Zion's injuries to take over. He went to his first All-Star game, approved in every statistical model, and yeah, he had the unfair Baby Durant moniker going into his rookie season, and obviously he hasn't lived up to that, but he's been making good on his potential now, and just in time for a nice payday coming up this summer, as he's an unrestricted free agent. So those are my top two, clearly. How about you, Marco?
I got Ingram and Doncic at 2 and 3. I think the leap, like we usually like overlook players like Doncic because
Yeah.
he was already so good in his first year, but he became so much better this year, you know. But obviously, I think the most important player is usually for two types of players, like players who were not like very well known and they just came really good, or they were like in a very bad year and they just came back became better. And I think Bam Adebayo is the guy. He doubles it. As Dan has already pointed, he doubled his stats, and he's involvement, his production for the Heat, I think is the main one. You know, so I go with him. But I think Brandon Ingram, especially because of the narrative around him, I just say like new Kevin Durant, and then he wasn't, and then LeBron comes in and he doesn't work with him, and now he's playing really well. I think it's a pretty good narrative as well. So I'll go with any of the two. But what about a guy Bowen loves? What about Trae Young? Also, like a lot of more points, right?
I can. Yeah. Okay.
I cannot believe this.
I thought Marco was gonna go Tatum all the way there, but
so did I.
Tatum was already really good last year. He was just like kind of bad because of Kyrie. So, sorry, but yeah, because of Kyrie. So now he's just playing what he should have played last year, you know. So yeah,
right.
Not surprised at all of seeing that from Tatum.
Yeah,
sorry.
Okay.
It's okay. Yeah, I'm gonna be the third one on the Bam Adebayo pick. He's the second best player on the fourth best team in the East. It's nobody expected Miami to be this good. Forget like Bam alone, and Bam has kind of like been sitting aside as they had Whiteside started a few games here and there, but like he's another Kentucky guy who is like he wasn't the best player from those teams and then showed out like Booker, and now we're seeing him just fully blossom, which is and the thing is like he's big enough to play center, but he's also his game is so versatile that he could play four. And like he's shown so much of that versatility. He's picked up a few triple doubles here and there. Like he's such a big time player for the Heat on both ends of the floor, and as a facilitator, he averages 5 assists a game.
Yeah.
And to be a double guy in addition to that, I think you go from off the bench to an all-star in your third year. That's one ridiculous jump to say the least. So close for Ingram, but I think the fact that Bam has come off the bench to become an all-star within 1 year's time, and then the fact that Miami has been such an impressive team this year, especially against better teams, I think that gives Bam the edge.
Yeah, it was difficult for me. It was just kind of a toss-up. I guess I just chose Ingram just because just his noticeable improvement in shooting. To me, that was just
averages
played a big
25
impact.
a game, so I don't blame you.
Yeah.
It turned into a star. I mean, it's. But I think the narrative for Ingram too, that's like before like looking deep into stats and stuff. I thought I was gonna end up picking Ingram just because of the narrative. Just like he was. It felt like he was in such a tough spot with the Lakers that long, and then he had those injury issues, and you kind of like. I didn't think he was going to become a bust or anything, but I didn't think his career was going to come to fruition like it did this year.
Same. I never really liked Ingram, and the first couple of years I was kind of like, haha, I knew it. He's not that good, but I definitely is eating my words this season, and it's nice to see. And I'm happy he's playing kind of not under so much pressure because LA is not the greatest place as a young guard or forward to make your mark, right? Like D'Angelo Russell is another case.
Yeah.
Football is another case.
Yeah. Quick mentions: Devontae Graham. I mean, he was fighting for a roster spot basically, averaging 18 points a game this season. Markelle Fultz has had a good bounce back year. He's now starting. And Christian Wood as well, who was out of the league last year pretty much, and he's come on and he's become a good starter. There's just some other guys I thought were worth mentioning there.
No, for sure.
So sixth man of the year. I want to start this off because I think Dennis Schroeder. So 63 games played. He started once, averaged 30 minutes a game, 19 points a game on 46.8% shooting 38% from three, 4 assists a game, 27.3% usage, which is the highest on the team. So he had 2 years of being the lead ball handler on the Hawks once Jeff Teague left, and he didn't do so well. Some people thought, he's not going to be a beneficial NBA player. He kind of brought in more negatives than positives. And last year, he only started 14 games and was hindered by the dominance of Westbrook and George. This season, he's flourished. He's utilized his sparky offense to tackle the bench players on opposite teams. Not only that, he ends games with the lineup of Chris Paul, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, himself, Danilo Gallinari, and Steven Adams. That fivesome has outscored oppositions by 30.1 points in 376 possessions and is in the 98th percentile of points per possession, 136.4. And OKC is the first ranked clutch team, which clutches last 5 minutes of a game where point differential is 5 or less. So they're 29-13 in those 42 games with a net rating of 30.2. So I just think he's made the most impact coming off the bench, and to be in that closing lineup with 3 guards and to do so well in the clutch, I think really shows his growth and his capability of being a very electric and great bench player.
I love the Schroeder pick. This one was so hard for me because I want to pick Schroeder, but I'm giving the slight edge to Montrezl Harrell.
Yeah, he was my number 2, so
like his numbers are up from last year, but at the same time, like, yes, I'm not even factoring like the Clippers being the better team. It's more so that like how important he is to that team, because the Clippers' weak spot is at the big spot. They don't really have much going on there. Like if you take Harrell away, it's Zubac, and then you have Marcus Morris, who they traded for near the deadline. And aside from that, like you don't really have a lot to go on. And coming off the bench, like he does play a lot of minutes. He averages about 18 to 19 a game, 7 rebounds. But like his energy and like his hustle, like he brings it out for the Clippers, and like he's such a key piece for them on that end. But also as far as defending other bigs, I'm not saying he's the best defense player out there, but he's their best big man standing at 6'7", which says a lot. And I don't know where the Clippers would be without him, to be honest, because all they got is wing guys and guards. So I don't know how much Zubac would have really helped them as far as bringing that same energy, but I think the Clippers fall a little bit lower without him. And I think that says a lot considering the star power that they have on that team.
Marco?
Well, it's me. So yeah, the problem with Harrow is him and Low Williams are in the same team, and both guys are in the same conversation. So I'm gonna go with Schroeder as well. I think OKC is a surprise for everybody. There were like articles and a consensus that they were not going to make the playoffs this season, and this might be like a top 5 Chris Paul season, and that's saying a lot because Chris Paul has been playing great since like 2008. So that's like 13 seasons in the books already, of 13 really good seasons. So that's something. And I think Schroeder is a huge part of that, so I'm gonna go with him. I think his numbers are a bit better than Will as well. And Montrezl Harrell, like Schroeder is shooting pretty well from the field, like 47% from the field and 38 from 3. So his efficiency is pretty good. His points are like higher than ever. Than his last year in Atlanta, he had more points, but obviously he played way more minutes. So I'm gonna go Schroeder. He's my pick. I think it's a kind of a runaway one because Low Williams and Montrezl Harrell, they share a backup team for the Clippers, so they have more help within each other than Schroeder has.
Yeah, I mean, I think Schroeder's a great pick. I would say that this is like a definite 2-horse race. Lou Will's not having as strong of a year as he did in previous seasons.
And he's probably the worst defensive player in the league. Next, it's like, like he's so bad.
Lou Williams is a very overrated player. I'm gonna throw that in.
Could be. I still love what he brings, but
I like him too, but
in previous years though, he's gotten respect for what he's done off the bench, and it's always been like, oh, Lou Will and Harrell are great, but Lou Will is the guy. He is the sixth man. This year feels different. I feel like what Harrell's bringing to the Clippers is massive. Abdul, you covered a lot of that. Um, if you're a team and you're game planning, who are you game planning for more, Schroeder or Harrell? I think Harrell is
Yeah.
is a monster, and I don't care that Lou Will also comes off the bench. I mean, Harrell's what he's doing is just he's an efficient scorer and also um, takes on a lot of defensive burden for the Clippers.
Yeah, I don't think Chris Paul would have had as good of a year if it wasn't for Schroeder. Kind of the fact that he can defer. He doesn't need to put up these big points. Like he can let him run the show, and then in the clutch he'll take over. And just the ability to have those 4 ISO scores in the last 5 minutes of a game makes such a big impact. And I think Schroeder and Harrell are like they're not good defenders, so I think they kind of cancel each other out on that end. And then it just comes up to who do you value more on a team, and yeah, both are a good decision. All right, on to our final one, coach of the year. I debated a lot between my options, but we'll go to Daniel here to kick this one off.
Sure. I didn't debate about it too much. I just went straight up Nick Nurse. I think he deserves the credit. Raptors, after losing Kawhi, have the third best record in the league. It's crazy, and if you look at their team, I mean, they play a team style. It's not one guy who's leading them. I know like Siakam's having a great year and Lowry's always doing his thing, but every player in the rotation has a huge effect on the team, and he's been able to unlock a lot of players like Van Vliet and Powell. And then on top of that, just the Raptors defense is one of the best in the league. So I got Nick Nurse there. I think he's getting the most out of his talent.
Abdul?
This one was really tough, as well as sixth man of the year for me, but I'm flipping on my initial thoughts from before we started this. I'm actually agreeing with Daniel here. I was thinking Billy Donovan. I think it's close just because OKC was not expected to do much this year. And they're in the 5th seed in the West, which is ridiculous. With an aging Chris Paul, who a lot of people wrote off. People didn't know what they were going to get out of Shai. Everyone knew Dennis Schroeder would be the sixth man, but like nobody really knew what this team would become. It was kind of like a view of they're transitioning and going to retool. So Billy Donovan I was really tempted to, but Nick Nurse, like what he's done this year, like I know here in Canada it's different because like some people may think it's biased, but like we knew that the Raptors wouldn't be a terrible team this year. But like there were people in other places who thought otherwise, that without Kawhi, the Raptors wouldn't be much. And I just think that for them to be, it's not even just how much they've squeezed out of the talent, it's also all the injuries that they've had this year. They faced God knows how many injuries this year, and they still managed to win over and over and over. And just they're so consistent, amongst the best defensive teams in the league this year without Kawhi. I think this says a lot as to like what's the type of culture that Nick Nurse has built there, and the type of effort that they play with, and everything else. So yeah, slight edge to Nick Nurse on that one.
The Billy Donovan one's interesting.
Yeah,
I think I went one Nick Nurse, and my 3 was Mike Budenholzer for I guess obvious reasons. But my 2, and I thought about putting him 1, but I just couldn't do it, was Taylor Jenkins. Grizzlies are eighth in the West, 32 and 33 record. He's a rookie head coach. and he was coming in with a team that returned a grand total of 4 players from last season. Jenkins was able to weaponize Morant and get a lot out of Jaren Jackson Jr. while also still competing hard after the trade deadline that saw them lose Jay Crowder, Solomon Hill, and Gorgie Jang. And he's gotten great seasons from the likes of D'Anthony Melton, Jonas Valanciunas, and has even kind of made Josh Jackson a playable NBA player. So I thought a lot about putting him number 1, but Nick Nurse is just, what he's done with, especially all the injuries. I think the Raptors are number 1 in lost man games to injuries. I mean, Terrence Davis is playing a lot, Chris Boucher, even Matt Thomas, and they're still winning at that rate. Yeah, that to me was my number 1.
Yeah, I'll go with you guys right there. Like Nick Nurse, like losing Kawhi and still having even a better season without the injuries, that's enough. But I mean, all these guys are pretty good, especially like Billy Donovan. But still, you have like Westbrook for Chris Paul, and even though no one knew what they were gonna get from Chris Paul, you were getting really good from him. So he's still an all-star. So it's like a trade, Kawhi just left. Nobody came to his place, and the team is still pretty good. So Nick Nurse is also my pick. I don't think Toronto is going to go very far in the playoffs. I've said that 1,000 times before. I think we're going to discuss that. But I think as far as regular season goes, this man is just amazing. And the Raptors have a very good case for a great the best environment for coaches, right? Like Dwayne Casey and now Nick Nurse. They just know how to hire guys. I don't know. It's kind of working. Maybe it's Canada. Who knows?
That's kind of debatable. I wasn't a huge Dwayne Casey fan, but I mean their whole organizational structure and system, 100%.
But when Casey came in, I mean everything changed. So I would agree with what Marco's saying still.
Yeah, that's fair. I just don't see him as a top tier head coach, just all of the flaws he had in previous postseasons. But no, 100%.
I think Billy Donovan definitely deserves a major shout out. Like OKC, I mean everyone who was a part of OKC, all the players, all the coaching staff, just huge credit because everyone counted them out this year. And it's been fun to see Donovan freed from Westbrook.
Yeah,
he's done well with it. What did you guys consider choosing Coach Bud at all?
I had him 3.
Okay.
Just I had him in my top 5.
Just to be so good after losing Brogdon, I think, and obviously last season after they got rid of Kidd and that offense just drastically changed. That was pretty much all on him, and to kind of keep it up is great. I mean, the jury's still out on if he's a good playoff coach, but of course this award doesn't look into playoffs. So,
right. What if the Bucks had finished with 67 wins or something? Would you then have to look at it and be like, man, that's just...
I think it's different because you have the MVP.
Right.
And if the Raptors, if they finish second in the conference after losing Kawhi Leonard, I think you kind of have to give Nurse the edge. I mean, if they got 70 wins or broke the Warriors record, then it's more of a case. But I think Nick Nurse is, just because they don't have that MVP player on their team, you kind of have to give it to him. Okay, that'll wrap up our awards choices. Next week, we should get into all NBA teams and potentially our discussion on playoff bracket and what the playoff bracket will be, because we've heard a range of possibilities, potentially see a 1-16 or regular conference seeding. But we'll have to wait and see on that. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next Monday.